Hi everyone! It took me a very long time to realise that my greatest leadership asset wasn't my title, my to-do list or my strategic plan. It was me. Yep, little old me. I always had my own personality, my own weird sense of humour, my quirks, my character, and yeah, I used them, but I never really valued them. But for years I didn't know that you could, let alone you should. Instead, I played the game, the one where you try to look and sound like what you think a principal should be. Calm, certain, professional, always in control, foremost, and then the human that I was second. I was performing leadership, not living it, and as a result, I found myself in a kind of no man's land caught between the performance of my own personality. There was this strange juxtaposition in my thinking that had me careening between both extremes. So there were definite times when I allowed myself to be me, but then I'd hit some sort of wall made up of external and internal judgments that kind of suggested this wasn't the way that leaders should behave. And I don't say that as a criticism, it's just survival. When you first step into the big chair, you try to prove that you belong there. You copy what looks safe. You model what seems respected. You do what everyone else does because the last thing you want to do is get it all wrong. But there's a quiet truth most leaders eventually discover if they hang around long enough. Authenticity isn't the reward for experience, it's actually the work of experience. And as a result, you shouldn't stumble into being yourself, you've got to actually pursue it. I guess this all matters because when you're not being yourself, you start to leak energy in every direction. And let's face it, being a principal is an energy draining endeavour even on the best of days. This energy drain is pretty subtle at first. It's more of a persistent drip like leak. You smile a little less. You overthink how you're coming across. You play it safe when you should be bold. And you avoid things, lots of things. And after a while, you realise you're running your leadership like a performance review that just never ever ends. And sadly, everyone around you can tell that something is up. They might not necessarily spot when a leader's acting out of script, but they'll notice the ball dropping moments way more often than they really need to. They might not call it out, but they'll feel it, that distance between what's said and what's actually real. Authenticity isn't about being perfect, and neither should your leadership. It's more about being, congruent. Actually, that's exactly what you should aim for, being a congruent leader, when what you say, do and believe all line up. And this is where people start to trust you, not because you're infallible, but because you're real. So this thing I call congruent leadership means, am I leading in a way that reflects who I truly am? Are my actions lining up with my values? Does what I do on the outside match what I actually believe on the inside? And when the answer is yes, even imperfectly yes, then that's congruent leadership. And I think also, quite obviously, a lot of this comes down to a problem with confidence. It's having a confidence in yourself. I certainly had a lack of that. Having the confidence to accept yourself for being yourself is actually the bridge between knowing who you are and leading from that place. It's the point where self-awareness turns into self-trust. Self-awareness is actually the first step. You can't be authentic until you know who you are, your values, your strengths, quirks, blind spots, and what genuinely matters to you as a leader. That's the reflective piece. Who am I at my best? What does good leadership look like for me? But self-awareness on its own isn't enough. You can know yourself well and still hide it. So self-acceptance is actually the turning point. This is where you stop apologising for being different or for leading in a way that doesn't look like everyone else's version. It's saying, hey, this is who I am, a human being who leads with humour, empathy and imperfection, and that's not a flaw, it's actually my strength. Self-acceptance doesn't mean arrogance or stubbornness. It just means being at peace with your wiring. You're not going out to try to prove your worth anymore, you're just bringing it instead. I remember the exact meeting where I realised I didn't have to sound like every other principal. I said something incredibly stupid, silly and ridiculous in the middle of a staff meeting that just broke the tension. Everyone laughed and the conversation actually moved forward. And that's when I clicked. My personality wasn't a distraction from my leadership. It was my leadership. Confidence is what makes you visible. Once you accept who you are, you can show it. You stop seeking validation for every decision. You stop comparing yourself to other leaders. You stop second guessing whether your style is professional enough. Confidence gives you the courage to stay authentic even when it's uncomfortable, when your way of leading might be quieter, more relational, more creative than, say, the traditional model. It's the difference between knowing who you are and trusting who you are. So how do you pursue being you? So here's what I've learned, and still relearn, about showing up as yourself on purpose. You've got to start by noticing when you're performing. Catch those moments when you're trying to sound leader-like instead of speaking like yourself. You'll feel it. A little tightening in your chest, a slight hesitation before you speak. The inner editor that says, "Don't say that, it's not professional." That's your cue. That's when you take a breath and you remind yourself, leadership doesn't need an accent. The way you speak is actually absolutely fine. But don't start second-guessing yourself either. Play the part of you in this role. You do it much better than anyone else. You know, I once spent 20 minutes rewriting a newsletter paragraph because it didn't sound principled enough. I ended up sending out the first version anyway. No one even noticed. The second guessing was entirely mine. Next, you need to do small, honest experiments. Authenticity grows in tiny acts of courage. Be honest in a meeting when you don't actually have the answer. Use humour when the moment needs lightness. Share a story instead of a strategy. Let people see your humanity before your job title. It won't make you weaker. It'll make you human, and people actually follow humans. You've also got to know what anchors you. Authenticity isn't just about being yourself, it's being grounded in your best self. That means knowing your values, your triggers, your sense of purpose. You've got to ask yourself, what do I stand for as a leader? And what does that look like in the many faceted scenes of your school life? And what kind of energy do you want to bring into every single room? What's the best way to do this? And when do you feel most like yourself? How can you do more of that? I think it's also really important to find your tribe. Being authentic can feel risky, especially in a system that rewards composure over vulnerability. There's so much judgment out there that dresses itself up as accountability. So find people who get it, who get both you and the role. Colleagues who value honesty over polish, who will call you out gently when you start playing a role again. These are the people who remind you that being human is professional. And if you're lucky enough, you'll build a team around you, people just like this. Without them, leadership can be a very lonely place. And then you've got to give yourself permission to enjoy it. When you start leading as yourself, things start to change. Conversations feel lighter, relationships deeper, your sense of humour sneaks back in. You start to notice small wins again, like the laughter in the staff room and the quiet pride after a good day. And you realise that you don't have to perform leadership, you can actually live it. So what I'm really saying, and I'm saying this quite loudly, is be you, do you. If you're still trying to sound like the right kind of principal, maybe it's time to sound like you, the right kind of you. You've earned that. Lead with humour, admit the mistakes, share the stories, wear the comfy shoes or your favourite pair of jeans, and laugh at the ridiculous. The best version of leadership isn't the one that ticks the boxes, it's the one that tells a story of your greatest asset, and that's you. And at the end of the day, people don't want a perfect leader, they want a real one. And that starts the moment you decide to stop performing and start being, unapologetically, you. Now go grab a coffee. The world needs your kind of leader, okay? Alright then, if you enjoyed this video, then you'll undoubtedly enjoy reading my book. Am I Having Fun? Is stacked full of great leadership ideas to help free up your thinking time so that you can enjoy your job just a little bit more. Go and get your copy now.